Okay.
After that, you can then do your prototyping, send back to him or her. Then they'll look at it, make corrections, and off and on until you now start designing. That is my understanding.
Okay. That's perfect. At least that's a great understanding that your explanation really at least explained to a large detail what UX is. So on the right there for that, who else wants to say something? Think we're about six. Hi, Mav, welcome. So anybody else? All right. So if nobody else is talking, quite all right. Obina has explained at least to a large extent what UX is all about and how it works for us. I think this class is more or less to break down UX about how it works, so how the user experience is going to flow. I think I can skip all of this and then we can just go straight to talking about what actually is UX and how best does it work. Just like Obina said, it's more or less the process of trying to understand how users work. It's more or less saying, okay, who are the users of this particular product? What do they expect to get out of the product at the end of the day? How are we going to get it? So, in plain terms, it's just saying that UX is simply how we listen to users, not just what they say, but also about how they behave and then how it makes sense to them. Because when you talk to users, users can make a particular suggestion about a particular thing, but in real sense, they're just telling you the suggestion, not because they actually need it like that, but just because of the way it was presented to them. So research in its core is understanding users' behavior needs and then observe them. Because someone might say something and then their behavior or needs might tend towards another thing. And that's why you have to really understand your user. Because it is mostly said that if you understand UX very well, like you understand user research, understand everything pertaining to it, it solves at least 50 to 60% of your problem. Because once you understand what you're solving, the users you're dealing with, what they want to achieve at the end of the day, creating a UI becomes easy because you now understand that, oh, I might be moving from point A to point B or point C to point D, but it's just what it is basically. Now, examples I can give here is maybe we can start with the fintech app. I'm breaking it down because I want to just start from a beginner level upward. I know that we have some of us here who are advanced, so please forgive me if I'm starting this way. I just want to be sure that everybody is on a playing field because I understand that this class is pretty mixed up. So we're going to go this way. Now, for examples, for your fintech apps, maybe OP Money for whatever it is, if you want to send money, you have to like make sure that oh there are certain things in place for you to send money, and it is impossible. And the reason is that you have to put it in places so that users will easily use it. Now, I'm saying this because if you open your app and then you want to send money and you cannot find the send or transfer button, it becomes a problem, especially when it's not on the home screen. Because for most apps that have been created, it's designed in such a way that immediately you open up your home screen, you're supposed to see like send money, either you send money or transfer money on that home screen, and you don't have to start searching among like other menus to see, okay, why is it not here? And all of that. Even when you want to order food, another thing is if you have bought from a vendor previously, you can still go under your history. And while looking at that vendor list, you get to see something like reorder. You're reordering because you don't want to think. And then, like we say, users are people who just want things done for them and then they want it easily done, at least in most cases, because I believe that if I send money to this person, I don't want to come back and start having to remember what that's me going back to fintech. I don't want to come back and start thinking about, oh, which bank did I send to? I want to be able to come to my history and probably just type out a name and then that person's account number comes back up and then I choose to transfer again. Same thing for food. If I'm using a particular food app to order my food, I'm buying from a particular vendor and I don't want to try new vendors, it means that I would always have to go back to my history to more or less click reorder in case this is where I have to order a particular thing and I'm not changing my order. And then I only create like a new order when I want to try something different. So more or less, it's just saying that research bridges the gap between the users and the business, because we say something always. Design, UI UX design is not just about designing products and bringing them to life. It's more or less you understanding the business needs and then understanding the user's needs, creating profit for the business while solving the user's problem at the end of the day. So when you merge all of this together, this is everything you have that goes under UX, and that is why it is very, very, very important. Another thing we'll talk about here is, okay, so why does US matters? Now, some people will tell you that, oh, there's no need, the company is small, why should we do UX research? Why are we going to, we are wasting time? We can easily just pick from other businesses and work. Now, in some instances, it's easy to do. It's easy for you to say, okay, say food industry, it might have its peculiarities, and this is everything that has to be done. You don't want to do that, but you can still go ahead and create something from what every other person is doing, and then still lag behind. The idea is every business is peculiar and everybody has their unique selling points. So UX comes in here because even though these people have existed and they have did certain things and they have failed, research will just make you identify certain mistakes or pinpoint certain mistakes that they have made. Now, one thing I stated here is that it reduces guesswork. It just takes off the idea of, oh, they did it like this, let's do it like this. Let's try to let's just copy what they did. If what they are doing is working, why don't we copy it? And why don't we have it work? That's one. Another thing is saves time and money. When we say it saves time and money, we're saying that, okay, the time it will take you to do your research and then find out faults that other products have and improve on it. If you skip the UX part of it, what might happen is you might build something that you feel that's what the other company is using, but then at the tail end of things, they have what they do behind the scene that you didn't find out because no research was conducted. And then when the product starts failing, is that time you suddenly remember that, oh, what are the users actually clicking on this website? Where are they going to? What pages did they spend their time on? How long did they spend their time on this website? What can we do? If this has been done from the very beginning, it would have saved a lot of time, because in the process of analyzing your competitors while carrying out your user research, you find out that, oh, okay, this is what they are doing now. This is what is working. This is what is not working for them. How can we improve on what is not working for them, make it better in the app we're designing, and then push it out to users? Another thing UX research also does is that it helps prioritize what next to build, because in clear sense, we say that no product is ever finished. As long as it is being built, it's never finished, because the more you move down or the more you progress, you just realize that, oh, this was working, but now we have to change. So you keep iterating on a particular product time and time again. It's more like, let's just say, I won't call it a circle, but it's more like a lifetime, because the product that you built today, in the next 1 year, it's not going to be the same product that is going to stand, in the sense that it might have improved on certain features, certain things might have been changed, and all of that might also happen. And this also happens because of users' behaviors. Users don't stay constant. And then remember, you're dealing with humans. Human beings are not a particular breed to stay constant. Our needs change, our wants change. So even if a particular product is serving a particular purpose, we're going to have times where we feel like, oh, this should be done to improve the app. And this is how it goes. Because even as designers, you're supposed to know that in the product you're working on, this is an MVP. After you have your MVP done, that's your minimum viable product done, it means that there are other parts of the website that you still go ahead to design. You're really only having your MVP done because at that point, this is what has to go out so that people can start using it while you still work behind the scene. Then another thing here is that it improves brand satisfaction and loyalty. In this case, we're saying that, okay, I've been using this product for a while right now, and at the moment, okay, hello everybody. Hello. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, all right. I like of okay. I don't know what was the last thing you heard. I just knew that my network has packed its bag. Um, okay, so okay. So what was the last thing we heard? I don't know how long I went offline. Hello? Oh, okay. I will have to likely turn off this camera. I don't know. Okay. So I think, can anyone just bring me up to speed? What was the last thing you heard if I went off or something? Hello, can anyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so what was the last thing that was said before I went off? I don't know how many minutes I was offline. I should just continue from where I stopped.
Okay, you were talking about, I think you were talking about uh, user research, something about user research.
Okay, all right. I think I was explaining about why UX matters. And yes, I think one thing I said was that it helps improve user satisfaction and brand loyalty. For that, I think oh, wow, that is far back. If that is far back. Wow, did I go off that far? Interesting.
I think you were saying why we give out some why we give out this thing to the users. We are still working behind the scene.
Oh, okay. I think that's closer. So that was when I was talking about MVP, because I mentioned that the product never ends. The life cycle of the product never ends. So
Yeah,
even when
yes.
you're okay, all right, thank you. So even when we're building, we're always sure that okay, there's always going to be an iteration on this product. We're always going to have changes to this product, and this is why it's going to happen. I think one example I might use here is Airbnb. Now, it's one thing Airbnb did in its early days was they had an issue where they lost traction because people did not trust their host. And then when they had to conduct their research, they now found out that people just needed social proofs and pictures, and that's what fixed their issues. Because I think for interesting. Let me share my screen, sorry. I think for Airbnb users, you just had to show people where they are going to. You had to be sure that okay, they want to be sure that okay, so this is where I'm going to, this is what the house looks like, this is what my host is going to look like at the end of the day. And that's one thing for them to like accept to do that, because you have to trust. There's always the thing about social proof. If you don't trust a particular business, you don't trust a particular thing, you're not going to use it. And that is that. So I would pause here now. And if you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask. This class is usually meant to be very interactive because I want to be sure that everybody's carried along. And also, I think while waiting for questions, Mav, I don't know if you want to add any other thing or you want to add to what we have said so far.
So I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
So you're talking about you know doing making, okay, for instance, like you were talking about maybe a product never ends, which is true. Like
Yeah.
why developing a product is it never ends. There's always
Yes.
a way of going back and forth. Then
Yes.
there is when bringing in new features and new features into that product. Are you still
Yes.
going to brainstorm? Are you still going back to um, do all those researches, and they had to do again and come back and then input it? Or are you just going to, put those things that are the new features just directly without any research?
Okay. So basically in introducing new features, the way it works is you already have your product out, you have done your research, you have built it, but then your job didn't for UX, your job didn't end when the product was deployed and when you have users working on it. At the point your users are using a particular app, we have tools that we use to like watch a website to know that okay, these are the heat map of the website, this is what users are doing. And remember that even after your app or your website or whatever has been released, you still go ahead to conduct user testing. Your user testing and then the way your app is being used by the time you monitor it and everything plays a huge role in what is being introduced now as a new feature. In real sense, it is modification of what you already have based on the new data you now have access to. Because if I were to use a bank app, for example, any of the fintechs app, most of them when they came out, I think we had a couple of them that were really rusty. Like when you open it, you just tell yourself that the mobile app is not for you. It's best bet to use USSD to transfer your money. But over time, we have seen the apps evolved. We have seen changes occur to it. And why this happens is they have had users test the app. They have gotten feedback from people because in the process of using an app that is frustrating, you have people commenting on social media, people saying, oh, this is bad, this is this. And when they start measuring the metrics and then the designers start going through what they are saying, and they look at it critically and feel like, okay, this is a good point, let's make the changes. They are making the change based on the data, the new data that is being collected. So they necessarily might not go back to what they have existing. They just have to like update what they have. That's why you see a product have version 1.0, version 2.0, version 3.0, because at each time when they do their user testing, they check how users are using a product, they make changes based on that, and that's how it just moves. It's just like looking at Google, for example. It feels there are days that you wake up and your Google appearance.
Have been updated to another thing, right?
Yes, it has been updated with another thing. And you're just asking yourself, when did they do this one? Then another day, you notice that something else has changed. All these are not just changing because they want to change it. They're just changing based on what they are seeing from how users are interacting with their app and what they feel is the possible next thing to do, and based on opinions from people who are testing the apps as well.
So that means there's no need for going back to do design sprint and all of that.
No.
Okay.
You just have your normal brainstorming session, see what users are saying. This is what we have to now. Product managers will weigh in, developers are going to weigh in and see if there's something that's, if you make the update, it's not going to mess up with what you already have, and how best to come into it. Yes.
Okay.
All right. I saw Mr. Marv on this call. Or is it on the call?
Yeah, he's on the call. I can see his picture.
Why is he quiet? Hello, Marv. Maybe he can't hear us yet, or he's busy.
Maybe he's having network issues. Anyway, maybe. Hey, I have a question.
Okay, go on.
My question is it compulsory that you must conduct a user research? For example, you're working for an organization and they want to integrate something, a feature, something like that. Do you need to run some user research before going ahead with it, or you just need to understand it and implement?
Okay, so let's just come from a design part of it. Now, for designers, where you have things being admitted, or oh my god, this is not showing clearly. I'm coming. I thought this was showing clearly. Okay. So for designers, where we have things being implemented into a product that is being worked on, you just have to create a flow that product will work with, or something that will just lead to it. That's why we have overlays, basically. So it means that for cases like you have a payment integration, in your design, you signify where you go with make payment. Immediately the person clicks on make payment, the third-party company, which is the payment gateway, their own model will display over your own app, and then they can go ahead and do what has to be done. As long as it is an integration that works well with your app, you just more or less create a flow that makes it easy for it to transition from that particular app you have into the next one, and then the UIs blend together. I think that should answer that question. I would have loved Marv to say something, but I don't know why I don't think he can hear us or something, so that he'll just speak on the integration part. But I hope that answers your question to a large extent.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So that is it. So next part we're talking about is UX research powers. I think one thing that design provides for us is it gives us the ability to transfer certain skills. As someone who is interested in design, you have to be very curious, because for design, it's not just about the colors. It's not just about how you structure things. It's about understanding and then having empathy to know why this is going to work. Now, one of the superpowers I stated for UX researcher superpower, I stated curiosity. Curiosity in the sense that you always have to ask why. Like designers, if you have been in my previous class, there's something I said. Designers are not introverts to a large extent. Designers are extroverted. If you're an introverted person, you learn to become extroverted because you always have to ask questions. Why is A here? Why is B here? Even during the cohort classes, you realize that when we had one of the instructors, Mr. John, he said something. You don't just pick a color because you want to pick it. You don't just pick a particular font because of that comes to mind. You pick it because why will this font make sense here? Why am I using a cursive font in a website that is supposed to be for health? We both know that if I'm designing a health website, what is expected to be on that website is clear text, something that is easily readable, because what we are dealing with here is more or less life or death. So it means that if somebody comes to that website, the first thing they should be seeing is a solution to their problem and not struggling to read what is there. So your first ability here is you have to be curious. Another part is empathy, trying to see through the user's eyes. I always say that designers are not users. As long as you're a UI UX designer, you are definitely not your user. At times, we tend to get like, oh, why is this person saying this? Why is this person saying that? We see it from that part because when you tend to interact with users, remember, you're on the other side of the equation and they are the other end. Your own end as the designer or as the UX researcher at that point is you are trying to get information that will help you build something from the business that will help the business make profits, while at the same time you're trying to understand the actual problem that the users have so that you can merge it as one and create a solution for them. In that sense, it's more like saying, if I relate it, it's more like saying a user has a pouch over their phone. Now, the reason most users buy pouches is because they're trying to protect their phones. If it falls, prevent it from breaking, maybe their screen from cracking, prevent the phone from getting spoiled. But then there are some other sets. You as a designer might just feel like there's no need. We already designed the phone to be sleek and fine. The idea of the design is okay. I don't know how well my network area is, but the idea of the design, I'll just use this. The idea of the design is when the phone was designed, you picked your phone because of the color, right? And to you, this is beautiful. So why are they covering it? Because the user will not buy a pouch. And then for somebody like me, you buy a black pouch and cover the beauty. The designer will be angry because why did we take time to create such beauty for you to put it in a black pouch and hide it? So you have to understand why. Bless you, you're laughing. You have to understand what the users are seeing and why they want it that way. Another thing that comes into play is observation. You have to be very observant in the sense that somebody can say something and then their body language will mean another thing. I think I read somewhere where for the user research for Tesla, when they were first creating their self-driving cars, and most of the users who got into the cars they were scared at first when the car started moving on its own, and they were at any instances where they feel like the car is about to make a mistake, they tend to hold on to the steering. Now, I think from the research, they said about 40 to 45% of people always had that reaction when they feel like, why is this car going like this? It's supposed that they always want to hold the steering. But then another set of people just got into the car and were relaxed throughout the ride. That they didn't care, they just trusted it to like, oh, you have done it right, let's go. So another thing that comes into is the observation, because you have to understand what your users actually want. That's why if you walk a lot, you can see a road. There's a tar road that everybody's walking, but then there's maybe a field. You just notice that there's a path in between the field along the grasses that have been created by human beings. Why did they leave the tar road and decide to create a footpath among bushes? That is another thing to think of here. Then I think another part here is communication. So for communication, we're saying that how well can you communicate? In user research, remember that you'll be asking a lot of questions. So how well are you going to be able to communicate? Because you're going to have to communicate your answers, you're going to communicate your insights, you're going to have to speak to stakeholders. That's why I said you cannot be introverted. Because at the end of the day, when you're done conducting your research and putting it together, you put the best one that comes into play. So when you are presenting to stakeholders, you're going to have to tell them that, oh, this is why this is happening. This is why we're going with this color. This is why we're going with this design. This is why we feel this user experience is going to work best for us. And this is why we are sticking to it. So you have to communicate your insights clearly. Now, where does research fit in? Research majorly fits in through your discovery session. Discovery is where you have what you want stated down, but you still want to understand. In the process of having to talk with your users, trying to understand, okay, where are we coming from? Where are we going to? Is this supposed to be where we are? How are we going to do it? It's more or less for discovery process. One thing I would place under discovery is more or less users interview to understand needs. Because during discovery, you're trying to understand that, oh, the product I'm creating, for example, is okay, I'm building a washing machine. Why is the washing machine important? Why is the interface of this washing machine going to be very important? So it means that you're going to have to conduct your user research to understand this. Another thing that comes into place during discovery is where you get into ideation. And in ideation, you have to deal with surveys and then concept testing, because you might design something because you are a designer. Any icon you see, to a large extent, you know what it means. But then there are people that they have never seen that icon. To you, you feel like when they see it, they will know it. But then when they see it, they don't know it. It's just like if you have read the book, Don't Make Me Think. The cup handle or the mug handle was put on the mug so that when you put something hot, you will just hold it. But there are people that despite the mug having a hand, they just pick it up. Like they just ignore the hand totally and pick it up. So you see now you have to test it, because if you have that mug, imagine 80% of the users picked it up without the handle. It means the design you made is useless. For you, it's to prevent them from getting bored. But for them, it doesn't matter. They just want to touch the mug, no matter how hot or cold it is. And that is why they are doing that. Another thing that, as we said here, is design. Design now, you're not testing. This is where usability testing comes in. You're giving it, you're creating the features you feel should work. You're working on the prototype. You're putting everything together because, okay, yes, users should be able to do this. They should be able to move point A to point B. You choose to categorize your users either in group of 5, 10s, just like that. Just put them all in place and then have them come and then use this particular app. And when they touch it, they have something else in mind to do. And by the time you launch, like the question Obina asked, you start collecting new data. New data in the sense that you start looking at your heat maps, because we have apps that are connected to the website. You look at your heat maps. What do users see first when they come into the website? What pages are they staying on? What seems to be resonating more with them? What is that one thing they are complaining of? Because your launch is more or less your beta testing and feedback stage. So once that is done, you'd make changes and then adjust your features and come back. It's just like something I saw recently on one of the fintech app. You're trying to send money, it's showing personal and purchase, and that's what will now become your transfer remark. And in my head, we don't need it, because it's better I write what I'm buying when I'm transferring. I prefer writing what I actually use the money for under my transaction than having to push personal and purchase. It's, I don't know, okay, they're trying to solve a problem against maybe the whole tax thing that will happen next year, and the fact that they're saying we have to be very diplomatic in writing our transactions. But I don't feel that is the best way. It's best bet they just leave it blank and let us type what we want. So if I'm transferring money, I want to transfer, I want to write that, oh, I'm borrowing this person's money, or I'm using it to buy so and so item. If I'm having a long list of items, maybe I'm having to pay with my card, and then I'm paying for a long list of items I bought while shopping, I would easily write shopping list. At least if I choose to go back and track it, it's better. But when they put purchase, I just feel like, if I'm coming from a designer's angle, but I feel it's oversabi, they just have left it alone for us to do what we want to do. Then another thing is, another thing I'll still point out here is the fact that we talk about growth and continuous improvement. Remember that since we have now introduced the app out, there's better testing, data is being collected, feedback loop is still happening. So it's just like this continuous improvement, like I said, it's never going to stop. It's just going to happen, and things will just keep changing, because I'm not sure how long Google has been existed, but for as long as they have been existing, there's always a new change. You can open YouTube today and find out that all the buttons are translucent. Tomorrow, instead of being purely four-cornered, you have added border radius everywhere to our screen when you make it big. They have added glow to the buttons. They have made shifts. They are always iterating on that product, because the product is still living and breathing. It's not going to end anytime soon. It's just going to keep being alive, and then they just have to make it better for users. At this point, does anyone have a question, or should I go on?
I have a question. You're talking about heat maps. I don't know, but also would also love, I don't know, maybe that should, I really know what heat maps are, but I really want you to, if possible, for us to kind of practically do this UI, this UX stuff, like this in a research form. Do maybe pick up a question, or maybe pick up a problem, not just a question, a problem, and then work on it, and then see how it goes, so that people won't really understand. Because as we are talking about it this way, I think some people still don't figure out what is it. Yes. So I really want to know what maps are, please. Thank you.
All right, no problem. I think there's somebody's hand still raised up. Who else?
Yeah, that's my hand.
Okay, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I actually wanted to respond to Obina's question, because I mean that's an interesting one. Yeah. So Obina, I think first off, it makes sense that we understand. I mean, this is an intro session, right? And it also makes a lot of sense that we understand this, from the angle of description, because at the end of the day, when you start engaging maybe businesses or even projects, most times if you're working in the UX space, you don't even get to work on the actual project itself, but you mostly conduct research, right? That's why they call it UI and UX. If you decide to dive so deep into design and you want to focus on design, they usually push those guys into product design, right? If you are paying a lot of attention to the UX, then yes, you just do only the research part of it. I think it makes a lot of sense. If you have questions, you ask questions regarding what have been explained. When you get to the practical session, we'll touch on the practicals a lot. I mean, these are things we've done before, and we have a lot of videos even on our YouTube channel speaking to some of these things. I want to add something to what Amaka was saying regarding. It seems like you want to say something before I continue, Obina.
No. I'm just.
Okay.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
It's not like.
So yeah.
It's not like we are kind of. I'm not rushing the whole thing. Just like, I feel that some persons, well, it's okay. I understand.
I feel you are rushing.
Well,
No. So he said he's not rushing, but I feel that we should take it one step at a time, right? We'll finish up with this and then we'll get there. I get your point because,
Yeah,
like when you
because I
mentioned
really
that,
want the practical. I want to see the practical aspect of it.
yes, correct. As a matter of fact, while Amaka was, explaining a few things, I was actually pulling it up so I could drop them as links. So when she was talking about heat maps, as you can see, I have it open right here on my screen. If you can see my screen, I just shared my screen, right? And if you decide to dive into explaining heat map alone, you will be so fascinated and you want to ask more questions. And before you know it, you drift away from the main focus. Do you understand? So
Okay.
when we get there, we will show examples and we even tell you how this is applied in the real world, right? A lot of products are doing this, and yeah, we'll tell you how this is applied. I also have something here that I will share. When Amaka shared the learning material with me, I decided to put something together. So Amaka, I don't know if you want me to touch on this or you want to finish up first. Whichever option is best for you, just let me know. I will stop sharing for now.
Okay, let me just finish. I think I have just 2 slides left.
Awesome.
Then
All right.
we'll just use that to wrap up.
It's all right.
Okay. So I think at this point we say research equals to design. Why we say this is that UX research focuses on understanding the product as well as the product, the problem. Then another thing is that it also focuses on creating the solution, because if you have a problem, you will always have to create a solution to it and make sure that whatever solution is working on both ends. I think another thing to say is many times we have touched on this. We have 2 major types of research: the qualitative and the quantitative. Qualitative in the sense that you understand why people do the things they do, which is when you have to conduct users interviews and surveys. It's just more or less you understanding how they think, how they feel. And I think usability testing also falls here as well. Then another thing that comes to mind is quantitative. In quantitative, it's majorly numbers. That's where you carry out surveys, questionnaires, analytics. You're saying, okay, if 100 people, if I'm testing this on 100 people, if 60% go with plan A and 10% go with plan B, and maybe the other 30 go with plan C, it means that plan A is more viable than plan B and plan C. And this is why this should actually happen. It's more like saying, I think the only issue I have with fintech app is that if I go to my history, I should be able to check for somebody's name and pull it up. But so far, so good. I don't think nobody has done that yet. They still want us to be scrolling through the long lists and all of that. But then it's just as easy as putting that. Maybe the number of people that have complained about that particular feature is not yet, does not yet meet the standard that they want. Maybe they have a particular number in mind, and until that number is hit, we will not have that particular feature as well. So these are other popular research methods: user interviews, survey and question, usability testing, card sorting, A and B testing, diary studies. And this is the case study I talked about. And I think this is one. I thought it was 2 pages left. Apologies. Hey. Okay. One thing you have to note is that when UX research is ignored, we tend to have poor checkout flows, endless pop-ups, and then you have modals all over the place, confusing navigations. And this happens when companies design for themselves instead of users. Just like I said, you just, as a designer, you design what you think the users want. You don't even design what they actually want. They're just telling us that, oh, I've seen it before. This is how people A is doing it. We don't need the research. But what you don't know is that despite the fact that people A might be doing this particular thing, there might be something wrong. They are losing money. They don't know. They have not even thought about it, or they have not checked it. And then you are just following them blindly. You still now end up in the same condition. And at that point, they're like, what should we do? We're going back to research. That's when everything gets messed up. Then I think I'll just walk you through the process. I saw a bit of this on slide map shared, and then he can pick up from here. So I think for research process, the first thing you have to think of is define the goals. Once you have defined the goals, what am I solving? Who am I solving for? What is the actual problem? How can I merge all of this together? That is one thing that is very, very important. Once you can define your goals, you can start off from there. Then you go ahead to choose your method of research. Am I using quantitative? Am I using qualitative? Am I going to do diary analysis? Whatever it is, your goals will bet the method that you want to use, and then you go ahead to collect data. Once you are done with collecting your data, both from your users, both from competitors, all of that, once you have done that together, you now go ahead to analyze. The minute you analyze, you can go ahead to create your insight and share your insights. In sharing your insights, this then leads you to like the brainstorming session where you get to talk with product managers, engineers, designers, and the necessary stakeholders. At this point, what we're trying to see is, okay, the user research has been done. If we're implementing this, this is what we think would work. The product managers will tell you how that is a good fit or how it's not a good fit. The engineers might tell you that, okay, this way you're planning to implement it. It's not going to work, but this might work. So when all of this comes together with your brainstorming, it then bets what should actually be done. And then you can go on to do your UX. Sorry, that's a UX. To do your UI. I'm very sorry about that. Once you can establish your UX, you're more or less 60 to 70%. Let's just say 60 to 70% of your problem is solved, because UI is just like 30% of the problem. But where the core problem lies is understanding what you want to do, how you're going to do it, how the data is going to work for you, and creating the flow. So at this point, I have come to a close. Hi, Mav, you can come up. Thank you. Okay. Is he still on the call? So if there are questions, you can still ask.
I think we should start from taking questions based off some of the things you pointed out. If anybody has like question, then from there I can just touch on some of the things you've said, right? What I'm doing is not going to be like so detailed, right? It's mostly just high level, and I think some of the things you've mentioned already, already covers like the things I put together to share. My plan was that after the session, I would also share this so that everyone would have access to it. How many of you have heard of that app? Okay, let me start. Maybe 2 minutes. Quickly take your questions so that Amaka can respond to them before I speak. Yeah, thank you. Mm-hmm.
Don't be shy. Ask your questions.
I believe there should be questions. So, Amaka, is it that your students prefer when you ask them questions?
I don't know yet, though.
Mr. Marv, you said
I'm confused.
What I've said or what?
Yeah, please, can you take that again?
I said, is it questions on what has been actually
has been said? Yes. Yes, questions on what Amaka have explained so far.
Okay, good evening, sir. Good evening, Madam Amaka. I want to ask a question based on what Madam Amaka said earlier. So when a client give you what he wants, like this is what I want this, I want that, and I use the method gave us by way observing and trying to even look the other way to also tell them the thing that is right. But they insist that no, this is what I want to do. And you that you are designing, like, oh, this is the way it will be the best. Like, I'm just trying to ask if there's kind of issue like that you are like, the client don't really understand this space very well, and you're trying to give them the right thing or the better one. What is the right thing for you to do at that moment? Thank you.
The client is always right.
Okay. I know.
Alvarez, you can go ahead.
All right, thank you. Let me answer that. So yeah, I mean, just like what Amaka said, I was even supposed to start with that. The client is always right. Then what you have to do is to point them in the right direction. You know, if you are able to, when you are working for clients, you know, just like you put it, right? This is not like you are employed as a staff, you know, to work with an organization. When you're working for clients, if you land a client, it means I mean, I expect that you are already at that you know, level of consulting for a startup, or you know, basically advising and supporting them, because that's what you're doing. If you have a client you're working for, you are simply supporting, right? When I say supporting, I mean you're basically providing a solution. Okay, so you are seen as a professional. A client will not just come and tell you, "Oh, do it this way. I don't want to hear any other thing." You have the opportunity to walk them through the reasons. Amaka also mentioned this before, right? If you are able to walk me through reasons why what you've done is better than what I've done, and I insist that you must do it the way I want, even though I am not a professional, I mean, of course, do the work and move on, take your money, right? That's the ideal thing.
Yeah,
You want
Mr.
to fight?
That's I've actually encountered that kind of a thing with somebody, but I think what you
Okay.
should do is listen. When though normally, you know, in this thing you have to observe, as Amaka said, observation is there. Then you also need to also listen to your client, know what the person needs. Then after you must have, you know, made your research and all of that, and you have explained to the client this is how this is going to, and the person decide and stay in seats. Just do the same, do it as the person wants, and collect your money and go away. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, because you know, at that point in time, you know, these are people that are going to pay you for the work that you are doing, and if they insist that this is how I want it, and you don't do it that way, it's as good as saying you don't want to continue on the job, right? So we've had a lot of experiences, you know, like this. But I mean, that part of you advising them is very important. Make sure you advise. Make sure you show. Advising is not like just coming and speaking grammar. You know, you have to show evidence, right? Company A did it this way, they are here today. Company B did it this way, they are. In fact, company C was doing it this way you proposed. They later changed it to this way that I've shared with you, and this is, you know, where it took them, right? And if they insist, then it's as I mean, you have to just assume that they know their customers, you know, more than you. If you have the opportunity to at least meet with some of their customers and conduct research, it's a good one. But most times you might not have that opportunity. If you work as an agency, some of these clients or some of these customers that you have don't even want you to talk to their own customers. They just come to you and they tell you, we've done all the necessary, you know, feasibility study. We understand the users very well. Go ahead and build us an app that can do ABC. You know, the user, this is what the user flow should look like. Just make it beautiful. Use something, use components that are very nice. And you can ask them, you know, I mean, don't you mind if I engage the customers and try to figure out if there are better ways we can do this? You know, sometimes that thing I said right now, there are some difficult clients you meet with. That thing alone can make you lose a contract. I'm telling you for a fact. By saying, don't you think I can, you know, talk to them? It's like you are telling them that you understand their customers better. That why is this person just calling and
And you want to
calling and
steal
calling?
it. You
Yeah.
want to steal
So
the
they might just have.
customers.
Can you imagine? Sorry, guys. Let me just quit this WhatsApp app. Some people are very bad at making calls. You know. It's still ringing though. Okay, let me quit again. I mean, uh, okay. So let me talk about. Okay, I think just give me a minute. I need to quickly open activity monitor.
Okay.
Um,
I also maybe I will just add this wait personal. One thing you should also notice is like I say, what people say, like what they do and what they see most times are not the same thing. So that's why you're going to be very careful with how you deal with them.
Yes, it's true. How they say and yeah, it's true. That is where you that is the empathy stage where you kind of know how they feel, what they say, you write them down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Okay.
back.
So I'm sharing my screen now. Thank you. So this is something that I wanted to share. Amaka, when you shared that material with me, I just said, okay, I'm going to pick some of these areas that you already highlighted and expand on it. Also simplifying this side, right? I mean, you spoke about what researchers do, but I just wanted to have it like in two areas because this is basically what you do: discovery and validation. Amaka mentioned this as well. She even gave more detailed explanation, right? So first off, UX, simply the way or the approach that you employ to understand the user's behavior, their needs, their motivations, their pain points, and I mean, basically you are gathering this information when they're using a product or a service. So I wanted to also point this out: a product or a service, right? UX is applied not just in mobile apps or maybe I mean, maybe you haven't even thought of this before. If you have like a smart refrigerator or you have like a smart oven, right? UX is applied there as well, right? The thinking process on or regarding to how you, the user, would utilize that. Yeah, can you mute? I think there's someone. Yeah, please mute. Hold on for a second. Okay. So the thinking or the behavior regarding how the user, which is you, interacts with that product, okay, or that service. Almost every area, in almost every area of utilizing a service or a product, there is always UX, right? You walk into a bank, for example, the process of getting there, standing by the door, waiting for the door to open, the button you press, getting into that door, waiting for you to open again. I mean, there's UX everywhere because some banks make their own process easier than some other banks. You might be saying, oh, it's the same thing, until you get to a bank where you are confused as to which button you want to press, right? Or you are trying to use an elevator. You've been using elevators all your life, only to get to maybe the elevator at the CBN office in Abuja, and then you get into the elevator, you don't know the button to press, right? I'm giving these examples because yes, I've experienced a lot of scenarios where maybe you pick up like the remote to a particular gadget, and it's confusing at first. You have to take your time to even understand it, right? That was why you guys also noticed that when Tesla launched at first, when they launched I think it was the Cybertruck, a lot of people, I mean, it's user experience, a lot of people are not familiar with it, right? So there's something in UX called familiarity. I wanted to speak to a particular app that I love to share with most of our students. It's called UX Companion, right? On that app, they touch on so many areas, right? I mean, you begin to realize that UX is not just related to design. In fact, you realize that is related, more to the area of psychology first, right? Then business, even before it gets to design, psychology first, then business, right? And then it even gets to engineering. You talk about systemic thinking, even before you talk about design, right? I would ask you one other question. So imagine most of you that use OPay, when you click on you're trying to make a payment, you click on a particular button, you put in the account number, and payment goes very fast, and you are asking yourself, how come I use FCMB or maybe Wema Bank is not this fast, but OPay app is very fast? When you think about it that way, we are still I mean, it boils down to the UX again, right? Those guys have made the experience of the customer super fast that you don't even want to know why it is fast. You're not an engineer, you don't care. The only thing you can think about at that moment is what we usually call the non-technical requirement, which is like speed, right? The performance, the speed is there. So you as the user, you have experienced something which is speed, and you would love to always experience this speed. So you prefer to just come down to OPay all the time because of that speed, not because of the design, or because of that speed. You've tried Kuda, you've tried MoneyPoint, you've tried a lot of them, but because of that speed, you always come there. So yes, we're talking about products and services. Sometimes the way the way a service is rendered to you, you also think about the user experience. Some of you would call it customer experience, but we can look at that later, maybe in another session where we have UX versus CX, right? a lot of people in the UX space will argue that, see, we are talking about the same thing, right? Because you render a service, you are rendering that service to me at that moment, that experience that I have. I mean, I am the user. So you talking about it as the person rendering the service, you might call it customer experience. The person receiving the service is calling it user experience. So just let's keep that in mind. So the goal here is to make design decisions based on real user data rather than assumptions. And this is very important, right? What is user experience is, a process of making design decisions based on real user data rather than assumptions. Now, when we say design decisions, I want you to understand that design decisions is not just about designing on Figma. Okay, let's keep that in mind. Design decisions is not just about design on Figma. I mentioned the example of a smart oven before, right? Designing the controls or how to better use the controls is very important. I bought a smart desk, where I can click a button, it simply goes up and goes down, right? It can perform different actions. And it took me about 3 months before I realized that if I tap that button twice, it performs a different action. If I tap it once and hold it, it performs a different action. In fact, if I tap the 3 buttons at once and hold it for a while, it resets everything, and I can literally reconfigure the buttons. Right. I mean, I didn't get a manual, so that's another issue. I bought this stuff. I think the manual came with it, but I probably just threw it away and I didn't check. Right. Assuming there was an easier way for me to understand that, oh, we have this amount of controls and this is what it can do, it would have been easier for me. But I used it for a very long time, always asking myself, well, how can I do ABC, not knowing that I have to use like a multiple combination. The same thing with your phone. For those of you that use Android devices, even iPhones, you realize after a very long time that when you press 2 or 3 buttons, together, when you press them combined, it gives you something else, right? Imagine you are into the space of fixing phones, and then there's a particular pattern you are familiar with, holding the volume up and pressing maybe like the center button or maybe the power button, and that is the pattern you've been using for the past 5 years, only for one brand to build a new phone. Let's assume Tesla builds a phone, and in order to open that same menu, you probably have to turn the phone upside down and wait for 5 seconds. That's a new experience. Probably you would like it, maybe you will hate it. At the end of the day, we're talking about the user experience here. So I'm trying to make you understand that design is not about just drawing or putting objects on a frame or a canvas. Sometimes you design processes, you design the user's behavior, right? So when practicing UX, you are making those decisions based on the real user data, understanding what the user expects or how they behave or the familiarity in that environment, rather than just making unrealistic assumptions. So this is what I'm going to do. I don't want to drag this. I don't want to make this session like ×2. We have taken enough time already. I will share this with Amaka, and she will share with you what did I touch in this session. What do these UX researchers do, right? Some of the common research methods that Amaka have mentioned as well, quantitative, qualitative, right? And yeah, I mean, I pointed out some of these things in this document as well. And there's some engaging questions that you can use to better understand UX. I wanted to mention this, talking about the frustration test, right? And understanding this invisible design question. Like, for example, when we say name a product you use every day without thinking about it, most of you will begin to think, I mean, yeah, it is not hard. WhatsApp, Instagram, this, that, right? And now they are telling you, imagine if they completely change, if they completely change the functionality or some of the features on that app, how will you feel, right? The assumption breaker, we have the real world mirror. These are different questions that would help you, better answer or better understand UX. And then we have the $1 million question as well. And this question is usually interesting because this question makes you understand how close to business UX is all about. There's a particular channel I used to follow back then called The Business of UX, right? And another one called The Business of Design, where they talk about understanding how you can, convert UX into, business, right? Good business, because a lot of people don't understand that UX is more about psychology and less about about drawing pixels, like I mentioned before. So if you have $10 million or 10 million naira to build a new feature, would you rather spend 9 million building it and 1 million, asking if users want it? or would you spend 2 million asking if users want it and spend 8 million building it? I mean, all of us would agree, let's spend 2 million asking first because we're going to save more money. And that shows that, UX research, plays a very big role, a very crucial role in business decision, right? Because this is already UX that you're doing here. If you're already talking to users, asking them questions, a lot of whys, why would you need to do this like this? Why do you say you prefer to use this feature over this feature, right? You're already practicing business because you're trying to save money, right? Not just spending a lot of money building it, and at the end of the day, users say they don't want this. That's not what they expect, to have, and then you've wasted the whole 10 million naira at the end of the day. Okay, so there's another section in this document, that speak to how we think about problems. This section is very important. I added some examples, understanding systems thinking, design thinking, and yeah, I mean, by the time you read some of this definition, it's also easy to understand what is expected. The 5 whys technique, where you ask a lot of whys, just like I mentioned earlier. Someone is saying, oh, users drop off at the phone verification step. Oh, why? They say they are not receiving the OTP code. Okay, why are they not receiving the OTP code? Because the SMS take 5+ minutes to arrive. Okay, so why are we using a slow SMS provider? These are all attributed to the UX thing. At the end of the day, you are not really going to be writing code, right? But after asking this set of questions, you and the people or the stakeholders on that project have come to the conclusion that the bad experience that our user is having that is making them drop off at this stage is simply the SMS provider we are using, and we decided to go with the cheapest one. Now, the cheapest one, we are saving cost, but our users are dropping off. Back to the business decision again. Business now understands that, oh, we really need to go for the best and not, so it's kind of like a trade-off. We need to consider, the best option that is fast rather than, the cost, okay? And you are able to discover root cause because you applied this set of questioning, right? This set of whys, okay? And there are a couple of UX principles that were mentioned here: consistency, error prevention, recognition over recall, right? This is very important. Giving the users that ability to recognize patterns and not allowing them to think. Amaka mentioned something. Don't make me think. I read that book, I don't know, maybe 2017, if I'm not mistaken, by I think we call him the father of UX. I've forgotten his name. It's been a while, but yeah, I mean, he also founded the design. I think design thinking is it called the design thinking school or something? And I think I know like 2 of his companies, right? Even on YouTube, he has a very popular channel that I believe we'll share some of those details with you. Yeah, so consistency, flexibility, and efficiency. So there are lots of things here. Understanding your users, and this is where psychology, begins to take a big part of, being good at UX. If you want to be good at user experience, then you really need to understand user psychology. It's very important, right? Understanding when to reduce cognitive load. Google, for example, they can create the best design, I believe so, because they have a lot of amazing designers. But then look at their UI. They started off with material design. They are still on material design. Yeah, a bit of adjustment here and there, but they decide to say, we are still going to do material design. When you see Android, you know it is Android from Google. When you see Google products, you know it's a Google product, right? Their font is standard. You will never go to a Google app where they use a different font style other than the base font style they've created for headings and for body fonts, right? So their font is standard across board. I think these days they are beginning to play around with some of their AI apps, but at the end of the day, you see that pattern and you recognize that this is actually a Google product, right? Yeah. So you understand mental models. These are things I've spoken about before in some of my sessions. Understanding how users think about something and how they expect that thing should work, right? So imagine you are getting into a company and what they do there is agri-tech, and you are asked to build an app for that industry. Meanwhile, these users have also used different apps before. You won't just say, oh, I'm the best designer at CUDA, so coming here, this should be basic. Let me give the users the best design. No, they don't care about what you consider best design. I remember one example where somebody used the heart sign as I think they used the heart sign as favorite, but the farmers that were using the app kept tapping on that heart sign for every single product. And when they were asked why, I think they mentioned that tapping it probably means it gives more blood level or something because it was red. You know, I mean, I can't remember the exact story, but it was the total opposite. People in that field, in that space, they've done a lot of farming, right? And they have their own understanding of what they see. The same way in healthcare, if you show me hard sign and you're telling me, oh, this is me telling you that I'm marking it as favorite for hard sign. You are marking something as favorite in a hospital app. Like it seems like you want to always come back here. You know, it means something totally different. You have to understand what it means, not just make assumptions, right? And yeah, I also explained how some of these things are applied in UX. Breaking mental models lead to confusion. And if you scroll down, let me see, applied in UX, this is done. Okay, yeah, I think I was talking about the paradox of choice. Most of you might have heard of this before. This applies a lot in marketing. So how do you apply UX in marketing, for example? You can apply UX in a lot of things: engineering, design, marketing. UX is very wide. Okay, when you understand the fundamentals of UX, you would know how to better frame it into your space, which is design. Paradox of choice: how do we allow people to better manage decision making? When you give them a lot of subscription options, for example, on your website, imagine having 15 subscription plans. I mean, you have confused them already. I usually advise have 2 or 3 max, right? That's what a lot of companies do. So you see, it is coming from a strategic point, right? They don't just say, oh, we have 3 plans. I mean, they are saying we have 3 plans because they know users are familiar with 3, or should I say 2 or 3 plans, not give. All right. So I lost connection for a while. I just hope you guys can still hear me. Please confirm if you can hear me. I lost connection for a while. Amaka, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I can still hear you.
Okay, nice. All right, thank you. Okay, so yes, and when it comes to mapping the user's experience, this is where you begin to hear about things like journey mapping. You begin to hear about things like empathy mapping. And yeah, so I think by the time you guys consume this, before we even start talking about the practical sessions, I'm sure you would already have that should I say that vibe that you understand what UX is. That's very important. Understanding what UX is, so that by the time you are applying this, of course, there will be an example. By the time you are applying this, it will be easy for you because you understand the concepts, right? So we usually tell people understand concepts and understand the context behind those concepts as well. It's easier and better for you to understand the concepts than trying to cram things. You see a designer use this kind of button, and this is the kind of button you want to use for the next 10 projects you have. It doesn't always work that way. The button you use on an enterprise app or an enterprise platform, if you have used an enterprise platform before, the kind of button you use there is totally different from the button you use if you are designing a kids learning application, right? Not because in this industry we just like to use this type of button. No, the users that are using this platform, what are their age group? How do they even perceive this particular button I'm keeping here? What makes this button more interactive and attractive for them to click on? And why should they click on the button, right? Why should a child, aged 8 years old, see this button and click on it, right? What are the kind of grammar or terms? In fact, how lengthy should our text be, right? Look at this stuff here. Just look at my screen from this place to this place. If you have if you tell an 8-year-old child to read this, when they get here, they've lost interest already. In fact, this is already too far. Maybe after the first one, understanding how different parts of a product, blah, 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 and you get to isolation. That's the end. If you are their uncle, they will say, Uncle Marv, you are not fun. In fact, I will never play with you again, because what do you mean, right? They don't want all this. You have to make sure that, whatever you are writing is tailored to that particular audience. Okay, so I mean, I'll just stop here, right? But by the time you read through this, I'm sure you will understand a lot of things that I tried to point out here. Amaka mentioned majority of these things already, and I think it makes sense if I also highlight some of them again. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mav. So I think this is enough information to get started with UX. If you have any questions at this point, you can ask. We're already 20 minutes past time. But if you have any questions, go ahead and ask. If not, so we can end the class for today and see you on Wednesday. Do we have questions? Okay, someone's hand is raised. Go ahead. Nobody's hand is raised. I thought I heard that sound.
I think Desire raised his hand and took it down. Desire, if you have a question, please go ahead and ask, okay? I'll be fast with it. Okay, Desire, we can't hear you. It seems like you're trying to say something. We can't hear you. Amaka, I think maybe he can ask in the community, maybe on Discord or WhatsApp. He was trying to speak, but Discord. We can't hear him. Let's end the session because we have gone way past time. Apologies for the delay.
Yes. Okay. We're going way past time, but I think it's very
Mr.
important. No.
Okay, the tip Mr. Mav taught us. Hope we are going to get it. Like,
yes, you get the materials.
Yes,
I think it will be dropped on Discord. Yes, all materials will be dropped on Discord.
On Discord. How about WhatsApp?
If we drop it on WhatsApp, the probability of it getting mixed in the lots, we can still drop it on WhatsApp. But if you want to always find it, it will be on Discord as well.
No problem. It is on Discord, no problem.
Okay. I'll also probably, I don't think there's any moderator here, but I'll have someone drop it on the group as well. Hi, Hassan, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, Amaka.
Good evening, Hassan.
Good evening, thank you for the lesson. Please, so I would like to ask, if let's say we are working for a client, maybe as a designer and developer, after you finish the product and you now like launch the product. So after maybe if you discover like all those feedback and you need to update, the client must still give you the same designer or developer to still work on the new development, or you can give anybody.
It's dependent on him. It's majorly dependent on the client and then the contract you have with your client. If your contract is for 6 months and after 6 months they feel like, okay, you are done with the product, and maybe along the line, maybe by the 9th month, they feel that there are some things they want to change. So they don't have to explain to a new person. They might come back to you and have you do that. But if they still want to come back to you, they might give it to somebody else. So it's just majorly dependent on a client's choice at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Okay. So is there any other question?
No, but just thanking you for